Welcome to the Nest pregame show. We are less than 30 minutes away from the Albany Firebirds putting their 7-0 record on the line against the Nashville Cats here at MVP Arena. And today for our pregame show, we have the Director of Competition for AF1, Gary Compton, our first two-time guest. Gary, welcome to Albany.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's glad to be back here.
You said earlier we were talking, and you said this is the first time you've been back in this building. It wasn't called the MVP Arena. It wasn't even called the Pepsi Arena back then. It was called the Knickerbocker Arena back then. 1998 for the playoff game for the Albany Firebirds back then. Talk about coming back to this building after a couple of decades.
It was we were pulling up today, and it's like all the memories. Coming down the road here. Remember all the block parties that used to happen out front, and everything that was going on, and just to walk into this arena and, like you said, the nostalgia, the history that, Albany's had here and everything, and it just has that feel. It was almost like, I could go in the locker room and maybe suit up for two or three plays and be able to play tonight. But, yeah, it's great to be here tonight.
We're about the halfway point of the season. We only have a handful of weeks left. Albany's kind of dominated or showed itself as the dominant force so far at 7-0, but you got Salina gave him obviously that amazing victory last week in overtime. This game today, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be a good one with the talent that both of these teams have. How do you feel that the inaugural season of AF1 has gone so far for you?
I think it's gone good. As anything, when you have a new league and everything, you kind of have some bumps and all of that, but I think we've crossed that crossroads now. As you see right now, every team's getting better each and every week. Like you said, Salina came in here last week and gave a good run. This game tonight will be good. I think teams are trying to position themselves as we move into the last month or so here, of the season, with 4 or 5 weeks left to see how things play out and move into the postseason.
Has there been anything so far that's really been a surprise to you in terms of the ins and outs? And, it can be something behind the scenes. It could be something on the field, something that maybe surprised you this year in the inaugural year.
Well, I think, the ownership groups of all of these teams, when we got this thing going and it got a late jump to it, everybody was excited about what was going to happen. And the ownership groups, everybody got together, and you want to make sure the league is strong. That's the biggest thing as we continue to move forward. And, the ownership group here in Albany, second to none. The group in Nashville, and we'll talk about that here shortly, has been great. Billings, Salina, Southwest Kansas. There's a lot of great ownership groups here, and they're all working together and continue to make this thing grow.
One of the biggest things that I like seeing, and I run our social media accounts, and everybody's brand is growing. Mm-hmm. Like everybody is starting to hit their stride in terms of the presentation of the product. And, from a league standpoint, I got to imagine that you're pretty proud of what you're seeing so far from a presentation standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the social media for all of these organizations has been great. Yeah. And we all know today's day and age, social media is so important. Yeah. It's the influencers, it's the followers and all of that. Way back in the day, it used to be get everybody in the seats. Right. Now and all of that, we're in a different era. Yeah. To have the social media and everything that they've done, and just to see the stories of all the different teams and everything. I always get a kick out of game days watching the entrances of players coming in, because you see that on NFL, Sunday morning, Monday Night Football. You see all of that, and it's like, we're taking that in as well, and I think everybody's done a great job.
And that's something we've been trying to do, doing our Firebirds weekly shows on the Mondays. Last week we had Colby Bird and Josh Jacker on, 2 offensive linemen, and it's like, okay, what they do on the field is amazing, but it's not like Dwayne Brown, who's had 20 touchdowns this year. It's okay, let's tell the story. And we do it with him, with Dwayne too. We've told these stories, and that seems to be the ones that people really love, is the finding out about who these guys are more than just a guy with a helmet on.
Absolutely. I always say in this game, it's such a fans game because fans get an opportunity to learn about these players. They're very close to the game, and they get to know the players. They get to know their families. They get to know the background. You guys do a great job with the people that do all the extras for the players and, everything like that. And I think that's important. That's how you build, you build that fan base, and everything with that. So I think a lot of it, as I always tell everybody, with it being so close, it's almost like you put goggles on and you're actually in the game.
They at the end of the game last week, a bunch of fans in the end zone figured that out when the Salina receiver came down basically on top of them, but a holding call, called it back, so the Salina didn't get it done. But another question I had was about expectations that you had coming in, but I want to bring up a specific one. The gameplay has you know what I mean? Like, it could be, who knows what you're going to get week to week. Sometimes you're trying to do as best you can. But I think that's something also. I think the Vice programs have been terrific.
Yeah, we were glad to partner with Vice and, get on a national broadcast. I think it's very important. They've done a great job with this, and it's about promoting the game. We're getting the game out there. We're promoting it. We're wanting it to grow. And as with anything else, as you put a great product on TV, as we all know, and whether you're streaming it on Evergreen, which has done a great job with us as well, it's going to have more people and more eyeballs. We've looked at a lot of the demographics of the eyeballs on Evergreen and Vice, and it's we have great numbers.
Can you give us a little bit of that, or is that like industry secret?
No, it's nothing secret with it. I mean, with the Vice deal, we usually get them 2 weeks after.
Okay.
But you're looking at anywhere between 30 and 50,000 eyeballs.
Oh, that's fantastic.
100%. That's terrific.
Yeah, because a few weeks ago when Commissioner Fisher was here, they were averaging around 30. Yeah. So that is fantastic growth.
And what I also like about it with the Vice games is those will then get put on Evergreen, and you can go back and rewatch. You go back and rewatch, because a lot of people don't get a chance to see it.
Yep.
Or you watch the game. As anything else, when we watch the game, we miss a lot of things. So you like to go back and rewatch it and all of that. So I think that's a great opportunity that we.
Well, that's what I did this past Monday. I watched back the Firebirds game because we cover it. I mean, we don't. We're here, but we miss things. So it was fun. Well, it was fun for us, but maybe not for Salina. Like the final possession of overtime, it really got to see the nuts and bolts of it that sometimes goes over your head when you're watching it in the arena,
In real time. Yeah. So today, obviously, facing Nashville, this was a close game earlier in the year. And Coach Arbette is going to have these guys ready to go here and next, I think we're going to be about 13 minutes. But ownership has changed a little bit, and Nashville brought in another very well-known name to the game of football. Most people know him as Spider Two-Eyed Banana. Everybody else knows him as John Gruden, the former Tampa Bay Super Bowl winning coach for Tampa Bay and Oakland as well. Talk about having someone like that in the ownership group, and it's similar, I think, to Jeff Fisher being was part of that owner and then became the commissioner for this.
That was great news for us. I know Jeff had been working hard talking to John about this, and and it goes way back. John's brother Jay.
Mm-hmm.
Played in the league for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was with the Storm in 2003. That's when John was with Tampa Bay, and they won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So he's been around this game for a lot of years. But I think it's even bigger than the Nashville organization. Mm-hmm. I think it's about the AF1.
Oh, without a doubt.
And everything else. And I think that's great, because when you bring in somebody like this, it's like instant credibility. Mm-hmm. And everything. And, we want to continue with that. We want people to see that. We want people to get invested with it. And I think this is just one of the first steps of many that we will see moving forward.
I think what we need to do, if we can, not we meaning like our show, but us in general, we should have him in doing a quarterback thing with Sam Castronova, like his quarterback camp that he does in the offseason where he was talking to the NFL draftee guys. We should have him do that for us.
That would be it. Well, and you follow him on social media right now.
Yes.
He does all of the college stuff when they bring the boxes.
Yeah, I've been seeing that. Yep.
And and he's just, he's so unique with all of that. And just to see that kind of person that, we have now in our league with us is fantastic.
Well, the enthusiasm is infectious. That's what you want. You want excitement. You want people to be excited to know what's going on with the AF1. And honestly, like we talked about on the field here a few minutes ago, the quality of play is just continuously grown week over week. Look no further than last week, and look no further than 11 minutes from now.
Yeah, it has, and I think, like you said, everybody's starting to get in that window right now to where they're starting to really feel comfortable. And I think these last 5 weeks of the season is going to be some really, really good quality football.
I agree.
What's your overall feeling of the entire season so far? Let's say the first 7 or 8 weeks, in terms of where you've come from, where you are, and where you want to be in either the end or the middle of July when we crown an inaugural champion.
Well, I'd be honest, I would never thought, that we would be as far as we were at. Just with a lot of the things, and I just saw here on the TV, with Hulk Hogan, a Real American Beer, having that be brought in, which is great for us. And as we continue to move forward, it's little steps, as we all know, and continue to make the positives. And, as we move into July, as you said, and we get into the playoffs and all that, and crown a champion, here and all of that in our first, inaugural season, I think will be a huge stepping stone for us as we move into 2026 and a lot of good things happening.
Steve Seitis, wish you happy birthday, by the way, also.
Oh, well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate it, buddy.
So, I mean, I don't know what is transmitting over these microphones, but you can hear player introduction. So game time's just about here. So
we're getting going. But
get rolling here.
Of course, yeah. Gary, again, thank you for coming on. And we'll definitely talk, especially as we get closer to playoffs and get ready to crown a champion at the middle of July.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. By the way, you guys do a great job.
We appreciate that.
So we appreciate everything that you do for the league.
Thank you.
Enjoy the game.